Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's stir the pudding a bit, shall we, and get a bit of controversy going, because I want to talk about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. I want to compare and contrast. Now, I'm talking about their respective careers and the attitude. This is the key word, the attitude that both have displayed when facing challenges, being prepared to take people on. I'm going to make the statement that I've got more respect for the way Anthony Joshua has conducted his business, the way he's taken people on, than I have Tyson Fury. And that is not to say that I don't think that Tyson Fury's achievements are, extremely worthy. They are. They clearly are. And also, if the two fought, if Joshua and Fury fought, I would pick Fury to win, definitely. And probably if you go back to the point where Anthony Joshua was undefeated, I would still have picked Fury. I just think stylistically he's better. He's got a higher ring IQ, a bit more variety, very slick. But again, I repeat, I'm talking about the attitude both have had towards opponents, challenges, and so on and so forth. And because I say that I've got more time for Joshua, it does not mean that this is not an anti-Tyson Fury video. Some of the little fanboys, the little rimmers, yeah, they'll say, oh, you're just being, you know what, fanboys, you can't reason with them. They're just beyond it. So they're beyond any kind of sensible adult debate. But hear me out. I'm going to go through their respective careers, and I'm going to explain why I think Joshua deserves a bit more credit than Fury. Again, we're talking attitude towards a career. Okay, so let's take a look at Joshua first of all. Joshua turned pro in 2013. He knocked out Emmanuel Leo, who at the time was undefeated, 8 wins, no draws, and hasn't fought since. So Fury probably, Joshua probably made him think, oh, this boxing thing's a bit too much for me. And then he went on, yeah, he had the usual suspect. Dorian Darch was in the mix, and Matt Legg, he got rid of him in a round, Darch in 2. Konstantin Ehrlich went in 3, and then we go up to Michael Sprott in 1. Sprott was totally shot by that point. Dennis Backtoff, I think, went in 2. And we go all the way up. Kevin Johnson, he stopped Kevin Johnson. He was the first man to stop Kevin Johnson, only 2 rounds. Gary Cornish, he did him in a round. That was for the Commonwealth heavyweight title. He also won the WBC International heavyweight title against Kevin Johnson. And then he bumped into someone called Dillian Whyte. And that was at the O2 Arena in Greenwich, and it was for the Commonwealth, WBC International title, but also the British title. So the British title, very, very, it's a lovely belt to win, as you know. And he had that terrific fight with Dillian, knocked him out in 7 rounds, but was shaken and pretty much stirred in the 2nd round by Dillian, that left hook. Dillian was carrying an injury, so he said, but it was a good win. And then in his following fight, he took a quantum leap up to world level, or whatever you think of Charles Martin. He had the belt. He knocked out Martin in 2 rounds for the IBF heavyweight title. He became a world champ. And that was in 2016. So you're talking, it was less than 3 years, 2.5 years roughly, turning pro, and suddenly he was a belt holder. And then after that, he took on Dominic Brazil, who at the time was 17-0, undefeated. He then beat Eric Molina, 25-3 he was. Molina, soft touch, I suppose, did him in 3 rounds, but Molina probably had a little bit of ambition left, gave Wilder a very, very good fight. And then he had that titanic battle with Vladimir Klitschko, who at the time was 64 wins and 4 defeats. Klitschko had been off, had previously been beaten on points by Fury. It was a great fight, but Joshua was flawed, and then he flawed Klitschko was also flawed. Klitschko was flawed in the 5th, Joshua was down in the 6th, and then Joshua floored him and stopped him in the 11th round. Great fight. But, you can argue that Klitschko was old and had been inactive. But nevertheless, a great fight. Now, that was for the IBF and the WBA titles. So suddenly Joshua finds himself, this is in 2017, April 2017, he finds himself with 2 of the big belts. Then he had Carlos Takam, so-so performance. But Takam, at the time, 35 wins, 3 defeats and 1 draw. I mean, he was a legitimate contender. Then he had Joseph Parker. He beat him on points, so that's the WBO belt one. Alexander Povetkin, he went out in was it 7 rounds? Was it Povetkin? struggling to think now. I think it was the 7th round. But early on, Povetkin gave Joshua a lot of problems. I think he broke his nose, didn't he? Or was that Takam? It was either Takam or Povetkin broke Joshua's nose. And then he went over to America. Disaster struck. He was meant to fight, at Walking Pharmacy. Jarrell Miller. Thankfully, he got popped. Should be thrown out of boxing for good. He's so outrageously dishonest and should have all his wins turned to no contest, in my opinion. But anyway, he got popped. In steps Andy Ruiz and springs a massive upset, stops Joshua in 7 rounds. Joshua wins the return. Then he fights Kubrat Pulev, knocks him out in 9 rounds. And then the 2 fights with Alexander Usyk. One a unanimous decision, one a split decision, which should have been unanimous. So Joshua now finds himself 24 wins with 22 KOs and 3 defeats. And 2 of them are on points, 1 by stoppage. He's 33 years old. Okay. Now, let's look at Tyson Fury, because he turned pro 5 years before Joshua. Against, I don't even know the guy's name, but it was a standard journeyman. And he was knocking out people like Matthew Ellis in 1 round. Matthew Ellis got stopped in the first round a lot in his career. Scott Belshaw went in 2 rounds. And then early on in his career, he fought John McDermott. Clearly lost the fight. A terrible, terrible decision. I mean, do you know, Terry O'Connor had that 98-92 to Fury. Astonishing piece of ineptitude or corruption. It's possible it's corrupt. I'm not saying he is corrupt. I'm saying it's possible that he was corrupt. But either, if he's not corrupt, then it was an absolutely inept, disgracefully bad, incompetent scorecard. 98-92. He was the sole arbiter. And that was for the English heavyweight title. Eventually they fought again, McDermott and Fury. This was for the British title, and Fury stopped McDermott in 9 rounds. So he kind of rectified the wrong. And he was, he trundled along. I mean, Martin Rome got done in 5, didn't he? But he was on the floor against Neven Pajkic. He stopped him in the 3rd round. Fury got floored in the 2nd, then he stopped Pajkic in the 3rd round. I said Martin Rome in 5 rounds. At some point he fought him. But amongst all those, he fought Derek Chisora. And that was for the British and the Commonwealth title. And he beat him on points. And it was wide. He deserved to win that fight, definitely. Chisora came in kind of out of shape. And then he had Vinny Maddalone, Kevin Johnson. Steve Cunningham went to America, fought Steve Cunningham, got floored. Cunningham much, much smaller. I mean, absolutely dwarfed by the gigantic Fury. But had him on the floor. Had him on the floor in the 2nd round. And then Cunningham was floored in the 7th, and that was it. But Cunningham was giving Fury problems, and Fury just imposed his size, because he got a point taken off for a headbutt in the 5th. And he was just too big for the guy. And that's Cunningham's only stoppage defeat. But, Cunningham ain't a bad fighter. Former, was it IBF Cruiserweight champ? Then he fought Joey Abel, and then he had a rematch with Derek Chisora for the British title and the European title, and there was a WBO international title on the line as well, and he stopped Derek in 10, just outboxed him and beat him up. And that was in 2014. All right. Christian Hammer, he stopped him in 8. Then in 2015, he went to Germany and scored a magnificent win over Vladimir Klitschko, who was undefeated in almost a decade. Psyched out Klitschko, outboxed him, won in every department, and deservedly. I mean, those scores were way too close. 115, 112 twice, 116, 111. I mean, I thought Fury won, 9 rounds at least? And he just completely outboxed Klitschko. And then he had that big sabbatical, that 3-year layoff where he just got fat and had mental health issues or whatever. He failed a drug test at some point during that time. And then he came back. The belts went up in the air. That was all 4 on WBO. Not all 4. He didn't have the WBC. The IBF, WBO, and WBA. And Deontay Wilder had the WBC at the time. So Fury comes back 2.5 years later. I think it was 2.5 or 3 years. I can't remember. It was a long time anyway. Long time out. Lost a ton of weight. Who does he take on as a comeback opponent? Sefa Safiri, who was an obscure cruiserweight. Safiri retired after 4 rounds. It was just a glorified exhibition. worthless fight, just not even a rust cheddar for Fury. He then took on Francisco Pianeta. That was a pretty good rust cheddar, and he won every round over 10. And people were thinking, okay, he's edging back into it. But then along comes Deontay Wilder. And out of the blue, Wilder, who AJ had been trying to fight, suddenly out of nowhere, Fury's fighting him. And of course, a magnificent performance by Fury, only his third fight back. Got a draw. We all think Fury won because he did win. He was down twice in the 9th round and the 12th. And of course, the 12th round was that incredible resurrection round where he just looked like he'd been knocked flat, completely spark, out. All credit to Jack Reese for giving him a chance to get up. And then for the rest of that final round, he basically outboxed Wilder and beat him up, really. But I mean, incredible performance by Fury to come back after abusing his body so much, having so many issues, only his third fight back. Massive achievement. And then it was Tom Schwartz in 2 rounds, Otto Wallin. He had a very bad cut, 47 stitches according to BoxRec in the eye. Unanimous decision, though. Wide unanimous decision. Then it was rematch time with Deontay Wilder. A lot of people thought Wilder would get it right this time. I may have picked Wilder to win that, I can't remember. But Wilder got smashed up and stopped in 7. Again, another brilliant performance by Fury. And then, that was in 2020. And then in 2021, but this was about 18 months later. It was quite late in 2021. The third fight with Wilder, after several aborted attempts to try and make the AJ fight, because AJ still had 3 belts. Fury, he's now got the WBC title. For all the marbles, they were trying to make this fight. There was some sort of legal issue contractually. Wilder had Fury over a barrel, supposedly. Wasn't going to take step-aside money. So Fury couldn't fight AJ. They led Eddie Hearn a merry dance, digging out all the Saudi money and arranging everything. And then suddenly one day, the arbitration said, no, Fury has to honour the contract. He's got to fight Wilder for a 3rd time. So all that work by Hearn just went out the window. It's terrible. And I think the public thought, well, why do we need to see Fury Wilder? Again, he's beaten him twice. But it turned out to be a brilliant fight, even though neither man was in particularly good physical condition. Wilder had put on a ton of weight, God knows why. It was all in his upper body. He was knackered after 2 rounds. And Fury himself came in looking heavy. During the pre-fight, like the press conference and the weigh-in, Fury was effing and blinding and screaming and shouting and ranting and raving, and did he get inside Wilder's head? I don't think so. I think he did for the 2nd fight, but the 3rd fight, not really. But he knocked Wilder out in 11 rounds, having been down twice in round 4. Whatever you say about Wilder, Christ, he can bang that guy. Then we had the Dillian Whyte fight. Now, Dillian Whyte was coming at his previous 2 fights. He'd been knocked stone cold by Povetkin and then knocked Povetkin out, and Povetkin afterwards retired. Povetkin was 40, 41, something like that. But Fury did what he had to do. 6-round TKO over Whyte. Not a bad result at all. And then he had that farcical fight with Derek Chisora, which was a completely worthless, meaningless exhibition for which he charged £27 on pay-per-view. And what was that? 2014 was the 2nd Chisora fight. Now suddenly 8 years later, he's fighting him a 3rd time. Completely, I don't know why people bought that fight, but apparently it didn't do too badly at the box office. So people bought the pay-per-view. But, the Fury hype train is on its way. And now if you break down the great performances by Fury, there's no doubt that the trilogy with Wilder was excellent value for money. There were 3 very entertaining fights, and as far as I'm concerned, Fury won all 3. And in my opinion, the greatest achievement, even though stopping Wilder in the 2nd fight in 7 rounds was, that's a massive achievement anyway. But I still think the first fight, coming back so soon, having a completely meaningless fight against Safiri and then just a little sort of run around with Pianeta to get rid of some of the rust, to then go over to America, take on Wilder and essentially beat him, even though he was down twice. I think that's a great performance. And certainly going over to Germany in 2015 and beating Klitschko, another tremendous achievement. And I think So I think once you take what Wilder and a first fight with Chisora, I mean, I think that was a good win. That was a good win. And the second fight was a good win. Third one, you throw it out because Chisora was just way, way, way past his best. But you take those names out, Wilder, Klitschko, and maybe the younger Chisora. And there's really nothing there. There's really no substance there. White had been knocked flat, but two fights previously by Povetkin, and even though he's a legitimate heavyweight, White, I think Fury caught him at the right time, shall we say? And White, I don't think has looked particularly good since coming back after the knockout to Povetkin. And I think he was kind of there for the taking, if you know what I mean. He was also rattled in his previous fight, White, against a very light hitter in Jermaine Franklin. But okay, I'll give Fury credit for that. So maybe White, Deontay Wilder, Vladimir Klitschko, maybe Chisora, maybe White, yeah. So that's Fury. Joshua, what are his best wins? Well, here's where things get a little bit cloudy, because I'm talking about attitude. I'm not talking about achievements. I'm talking about the attitude of the fighters. There's no doubt that with Fury, he offered to fight Joshua after he was coming off back-to-back defeats to Alexander Usyk. And even though I don't think Joshua has any, signpost wins, even the one against Klitschko was a year older and was certainly inactive and coming off the defeat to Fury. Even though it was a great fight, it's kind of like the third Wilder fight for Fury. A great fight, but I wouldn't say it was a career definer. But Joshua, I mean, he fought White when White was undefeated and knocked him flat. He took on, Charles Martin was undefeated, Brazil was undefeated. Povetkin only had one defeat at the time in a very, very long career, which is on points to Klitschko. Joshua stopped him in 7. He lost to Andy Ruiz, but avenged it in his next fight, which shows a bit of character. Kubrat Pulev, he only had one previous defeat to Klitschko. Joshua knocked him out in 9. And then when the fight with Fury couldn't be made, he then decided, I'll take on Alexander Usyk. And he fought him twice. That's 24 rounds. He wasn't stopped, even though he was beaten up and stung badly in a couple of rounds. I like the fact that Joshua takes on the very best that are available and doesn't try to play games or manipulate the situation. With Tyson Fury, I think he does that. I think the business at the moment with Usyk, I've never ever heard of Usyk being awkward in negotiations, turning down a challenge, of being prepared to travel because he's won all his belts on the road. If there's anything holding up that undisputed fight, I think it's down to Fury. The way he offered Joshua the fight after Joshua had twice been beaten by Usyk, he suddenly seemed very keen to fight Joshua. And I just think overall I like Joshua's attitude a bit better. I think he is the one that's more inclined to say, okay, give me the best out there, I'll do it now. Tyson Fury tends to be someone who has that sort of Mayweather, I'll wait for the right time. Even to the point, if you go back early in his career when he was British and Commonwealth champ and he was meant to fight David Price and he gave the belts up, and Price won them. Why did he not fight Price back then when Price was undefeated? You would think he would beat Price easily, and that would have been a good scalp at the time because Price, again, undefeated and being touted, former bronze medalist at the Olympics. And also, you don't get Joshua, with any sort of Cephas Safaris on his record, not since he won titles. Probably Molina was his softest touch as a champion. And his comeback fight is against Jermaine Franklin, who gave Dillian Whyte a very tough fight and actually shook Whyte at times. You don't get any Pianettas or Tom Schwartz's during Joshua's title reign. Also, I don't agree with the fact that Fury is supposedly the lineal champion. I don't think that's true at all. I've never believed that. If he is a lineal champion, you have to regard Pianeta and Safiri as defences of his title, which would have been 10-rounders. It's not a lineage anyway, because the WBC belt was never held by Vladimir Klitschko. His brother held it, Vitaly, and then gave it up, and he couldn't win it. Bermain Stavern won it, and then Wilder beat Stavern. So, unless you're an undisputed fighter, you can't claim that a lineage has been created, a new lineage has been created. The last undisputed king was Lennox Lewis, and I know he didn't hold the WBO belt, but the WBO belt was meaningless at the time. It only gained some sort of status later on. And Lennox retired. Fury has retired on several occasions, and he's come back to say, I am still the king, I am still the champion. Well, you may be the best fighter, you may well be the best heavyweight in the world, but you're not the champion, you're not the guy who has the belts. If that's the case, are we saying that if Lennox Lewis suddenly decided to come back at his ripe old age of 54 or whatever he is, 55, that suddenly he could call himself the champion? Well, I never lost my belts in the ring, and I was the last undisputed champ. The line ended with me, and Klitschko won 3 of the belts, but he didn't get them all. His brother, and then Bermain Stavern, and then Wilder and now Fury were the WBC champions. So a lineage hasn't been created. Fury is not a lineal champion. This just doesn't make any sense at all. But he can create a new lineage if he fights Usyk and beats him. But he seems reluctant to do so. And there's a lot of talk about money. And so on and so forth. I mean, I'm not going to go into the attitude outside the ring, because that's not what this video is about. This is about the attitude towards who you're going to fight, towards the challenges that you face in the ring. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can see, Anthony Joshua has been the one who is more prepared to take on stiff challenges right now. Okay, with Fury, it's more complicated. It's more crafty. He likes to sort of try and play mind games. I don't think he's going to succeed with Usyk. Usyk will tie him up in knots, but and he's probably not as confident as he makes out he is. But you can't deny the achievements of Fury, and when he gets in the ring, he does thrive on pressure. I like that about him. I respect that an awful lot. He's handled the pressure very, very well. So I just think attitude-wise, I would give a slight edge. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. I'm talking about the attitude of both fighters to fight anyone. I definitely give Anthony Joshua the edge, although you can certainly argue that Fury's wins over Wilder and Klitschko are far greater than anything that AJ has achieved. Again, if they fight, I would definitely pick Fury to win. I probably would have done when JJ was undefeated. So that's my spiel for this. I thought it was an interesting thing. Again, we're talking attitude. I'm emphasising it again. I'm sounding like that broken record. I'm not talking about out of the ring. I've got no horse in the race here. Never met Anthony Joshua. Never met Tyson Fury. Don't know what they're like as people. Never likely to meet them. But I'm talking about the way they've approached their careers. So leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. Like the video if you liked it. Thank you for watching. It's a long one, isn't it? Long video. Hit the subscribe button. Please do. Help the channel out a great deal. And I'll catch you later, all right? Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.